Social media is the biggest waste of time you will ever come across if you do it wrong, which is why in this episode, I want to give you 7 social media marketing tips that will allow you to succeed by making sure you're doing the right things in the right place in the right way. All right, let's get to it. Hey there, my name is Erhart, marketing strategist, and welcome to The Marketing Show. I've been involved in this social media marketing game for about as long as there's been social media, which makes me sound really old. But over the years, I've seen a lot of things come and a lot of things go, and I've seen a lot of things work and a whole lot more not work. And that's what I want to help you avoid. Because what I said right at the beginning is absolutely true. If you're doing social media wrong, there is no bigger waste of time, energy, and money. And in fact, if you're doing it wrong, then the odds are pretty good that you're also wasting a whole lot of time trying to find out what to do right and getting frustrated that you're not getting the results that you know it's possible to deliver. And above all, just getting frustrated and overwhelmed and ready to call it quits and just give up on social media altogether. Which for your mental health might actually be a good idea, but for your business, it's a terrible idea. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't advise you on the mental health thing. But for the business stuff, I definitely want to make sure that you're doing the best possible strategies for your business. So with all that said, let's dive right into tip number 1, which is all about properly identifying your market. Now, what the biggest issue comes down to when it comes to social media marketing or pretty much any kind of marketing at all is a mismatch or a misalignment or a misidentification, some kind of miss, of your ideal target market. This is fundamental. It is an absolutely crucial ingredient to making sure that your marketing is going to work. The beauty is its simplicity. It's actually really simple and really easy to do, but the downside is that it's also really easy not to do and to not spend the time in really identifying that ideal target market. So do not make this mistake. Do not approach your social media marketing without first doing the single most important element you could do for all of your marketing, and that is really clearly identifying and defining an ideal customer avatar. All right, so what is an ideal customer avatar? Well, really, it's just a fictional representation or a combination of different characteristics, or maybe it's an actual real person that embodies all of the characteristics and traits of those most perfect, ideal clients and customers, the ones that love you, love what you do, are happy to pay you for the value you provide, and don't give you any kickback or penny pinch or tire kick or all of those annoying, pain in the butt customers you just don't want to deal with. Typically, an ideal customer avatar is made up of 3 different components, and these are important because they're going to enable you to basically choose the right platform, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But those 3 components are demographic details like their age, gender, income, occupation, title, things like that. Geographic details like what city, state, province, or country they live in, and their psychographic details like their attitudes, interests, beliefs, organizations, and what kind of things they like. Really, really important that you do this step correctly. And in fact, if you just do this, all of your other marketing is going to become immediately more effective. So if you haven't done this yet, might even be good to pause or at least jot down that you're going to do this right after the video. Make that commitment to me, please. I beg you, this is so important. In fact, this is so important that I'm going to ask you right now to hit that like button and then go down to the comments section below and write #avatar to take that first step in making sure you do this fundamentally important marketing tip. All right, the second tip that I need to share with you is one that is incredibly important, not only again in social media marketing, but also marketing and also business and also life in general. And this is identifying your goals. Now, the reason this is so important in the social media marketing context is because if you just approach social media with a laissez-faire attitude, with a whatever, we'll just see what happens, well, then you'll see what happens, and it won't be pretty. Actually, that's the best case scenario, that it won't be pretty. The more realistic scenario is that nothing will happen at all. And this is sadly how most business owners, most entrepreneurs, most influencers even approach their social media marketing. You see, it's really hard to get anything out of a platform or out of a strategy if you don't even know what you're trying to get out of it. So this is why it's really important to spend a bit of time, sit down ahead of time, and really jot out what you're hoping to achieve from these networks. Is it something really simple like building up an audience or just trying to reach more people, which I'd put on the low end of the spectrum in regards to importance? Or is it something like generating more leads or making more sales or better connecting with customers and providing some kind of additional service, which I'd put on the high end of the spectrum in regards to importance? Whatever the case, just make sure that you're identifying the goal that you're going after, and then you reverse engineer a plan accordingly to help you achieve that goal. I tell you, if you identify your target market and you write down some goals, this year is going to look a whole lot different when it comes to your social media marketing, and in a very, very good way. But that's not enough, so let's move on to tip number 3, which is all about choosing the right network. This is a mistake that I see made all too often, and what it comes down to is a misalignment. Again, we're back to that miss stuff, where we're misaligning that ideal target market and the right network for you and for your business. You see, there's this advice that's floating around that you need to be everywhere and you need to do everything. And the reality is you don't need to be everywhere and you probably can't do everything. Rather, you should be strategic and do the right things for the right people in the right place. This means identifying the right place first. So how do you identify the right place? Well, it's actually a whole lot easier than you might think, and it really all circles back to that ideal customer avatar. Because once you understand the demographic details, the geographic details, and the psychographic details of that ideal customer avatar, it becomes really easy to just start to line things up and figure out, all right, well, what kind of demographic uses this social media network? And what kind of demographic uses that social media network? And really then, you just gotta line them up. For example, if you're serving an under 30 crowd, then you're gonna wanna steer maybe more towards Instagram. And if you're serving a 35 and plus crowd, you might wanna focus more on Facebook. If you're serving a strictly business to business type of audience, well then obviously you're gonna wanna push more in the direction of LinkedIn. And if you're serving a really young audience, well then you're gonna wanna take a look at TikTok or maybe even Instagram to a lesser extent. Anyway, the point is that the advice that I'm giving right now might even change next week or next month, and certainly next year, which is why you can just head over to Google and do a real quick search for social media, demographic usage, and start to line up the right audience with the right network so you can make the best decision for you. All right, my 4th tip is to go all in on one. Now, again, this does kind of circle back to the you can't be everywhere, you can't do everything. Well, what I really want you to do is focus down on just one single channel, that absolute perfect channel for you. If you've got the budget and you've got the time, you can talk about having a supporting channel or a 3rd channel even, but not until you've really doubled down and really gotten maximum value from that one single channel. This means really diving in and learning the platform or learning the channel, understanding the language that's used, the context of it, the demographics, the type of content that resonates best, and how you can go about and kind of inject yourself and your business into the conversation without looking out of place. Now, one of the biggest objections that I get here is, yeah, Adam, I get it, but I'm just gonna hire somebody to do it anyway, so why do I need to learn it? Good question, skeptical client. Well, the reality is that even if you are going to delegate it or outsource it, you still need to know what's going on so you can evaluate if they're even doing a good job. This is why you need to know what looks good, what a good strategy is. Is the content relevant for the audience that you're trying to serve? And above all, is it helping you accomplish those goals that we talked about the importance of setting in the previous step there? This is probably gonna come as no surprise, but social media is not going anywhere anytime soon. So it does make sense to learn the platform, the one at least that you're gonna be doubling down on and really mastering it so that you can get the maximum value and really make sure you're doing the right stuff. All right, moving right along to tip number 5, which is all about getting the gear and essentially making sure that you've got the right tools for the job so you can do the best with the stuff that you've got available. Now, when it comes to social media, fortunately, a lot of the gear is free in that it's just the social media networks themselves, whether we're talking about Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever. They're all free to join and they all allow you to post organic content and not run any paid ads, and really you can just put out stuff and it'll get shown to people. Not many people, but we're going to talk about that in just a few steps here. Anyway, seeing as you've made the commitment, you've decided on the network that you're going to want to use, well, it does make sense to invest not only time in learning the platforms, but also some gear in making sure you're able to create the highest quality content, at least for your budget. Specifically, what I'm talking about here is video gear. No surprise that video is one of the most consumable and one of the most consumed type of content that's happening online right now. And when it comes to video, there's 2 very important parts, one of which is more important than the other. Let me explain. You see, when it comes to video, we obviously have the video part, which is you and me and looking at each other kind of through a lens, which is awkward at first, but you can get used to it. The second part, however, which is way more important than the video quality, is the audio quality. Essentially, people need to hear what you're saying, and it needs to be clear and more clear now than ever before. The other benefit of also investing in better audio gear is that you can leverage the audio and create a podcast from it, or use it on different channels, or take little snippets from it for other networks, or whatever you want. Now, when it does come to camera gear and audio gear and lighting and all that stuff, I appreciate it can get pretty expensive pretty quick, but you don't need to break the bank to get started. In fact, getting an HD webcam and a really simple microphone can be done for a couple $100. You're gonna create some pretty good content. If you want to step it up a bit, you could go with something like the Canon M50 camera and put a Rode Video Micro microphone on it, and you're gonna get an even better product. It's gonna be well less than $1,000. If you want to step it up even from there, you could go with a camera like a Sony a6400 and a microphone like a Deity D3 Pro, which is currently my favorite setup because it's just so easy to use, and that's really just a little bit more than $1,000. And of course, you could even step it up further from there with a Canon EOS R, which is a full frame camera and able to create some pretty amazing video quality. The point is that invest in something, but don't let the gear stop you from creating content and from really engaging with your audience, because at the end of the day, that's the most important. Also, I'm gonna make sure to put links to all of the gear that I talked about in the description box below, so you don't need to go hunting around for it. I'll link it up directly for you. All right, let's move on to tip number 6, which is all about paid ads. Now, I did mention before that social media is obviously free, whether we're talking about Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever. That said, I also covered that the reach is really diminished because these platforms are just so saturated, meaning when you create content, it's only sort of likely that your ideal market is going to see it, unless you decide to leverage these networks' paid advertising platforms. And this is something that I really recommend, at least in regards to Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and YouTube ads. LinkedIn ads are still a little, so we could probably just put them on the back burner for now. Now, a lot of people get pretty fussy over having to pay to have their content get distributed. After all, they think that social media should be free. But let's be honest, the social media networks have a business to run, so they should be monetizing their content and their networks. Plus, if you decide to change that mindset around, you can let all the whiners and complainers argue that nobody's seeing their stuff, and you can pay just a few bucks and get some pretty amazing deals. It's like buying oceanfront property in Malibu before Malibu was Malibu. That's where we're at right now, but it's not always gonna be this way, so the time to act is probably now. Get them while they're good. Oh, I sound like a sleazy salesman. Okay, moving on to tip number 7, which is to 80/20 your social media marketing constantly. Now, if you're not familiar with the 80/20 principle or Pareto's principle, it essentially states that 80% of your results are gonna come from just 20% of your efforts. And this is a pretty tried and tested strategy, or philosophy, I guess. No, I guess it's a principle. Regardless, you want to 80/20 your stuff every opportunity you get, because the best results are only going to come from a small percentage of your social media. Meaning, if you've maybe ignored most of the advice in this video and you're on all of these different platforms, well, at least take this tip into consideration and do an analysis of all the different platforms. And the odds are pretty good you're going to find that you're getting the best results from just one, maybe 2 networks, and all the rest can kind of be put on autopilot or maintenance or abandoned altogether. The same thing goes with the kind of content you're creating for the social media networks. You're gonna find that some kind of videos resonate better, maybe certain podcast topics resonate better, maybe certain pictures or posts resonate better, and then others just don't meet the mark. This is gonna sound pretty obvious, but my advice here is do more of what works and do less of what doesn't. I know, that's profound. Yet at the end of the day, it's the simple stuff that actually delivers the results, so that's what I want you to focus on. All right, the next thing you're gonna wanna do is check out the video I have linked up right here on Instagram marketing for small business. So check that out right now, and I'll see you in the next episode. Consistency, clarity, and congruence. Consistency means that you're applying a regular schedule, meaning you're posting regularly, you're checking in regularly.